Hey gamers! Now we know a lot of you are JRPG fans. Speaking of which, have you ever wondered if the Persona series was ever a part of the Shin Megami Tensei series? Well, let's clear the air a little. For a lot of us newer audiences, when we see Shin Megami Tensei or SMT, we immediately think of Persona. Not even Persona 1 and 2, but the later entries of 3, 4, and 5. If you're one of these people, you'll notice a lot of Persona representation in the latest Nintendo Direct Shin Megami Tensei trailers. Pixie, Ragna, Kirame Kala, Archangel, Lucifer, and countless more demon/personas. It begs the question, what exactly is the Shin Megami Tensei series? And why are there a lot of elements shared between SMT and Persona? For hardcore SMT fans, you may be triggered already with the amount of Persona mentioned in this SMT video, but bear with us. This video, if anything, is meant to show Shin Megami Tensei some love. So back to the question, what exactly is Shin Megami Tensei? Well, it goes back all the way to September 11th, 1987. Digital Devil's Story, Megami Tensei, launched as the first ever game in the Megami Tensei, or Megaten, franchise. It was based on a trilogy of science fantasy novels written by Aya Nishitani. The story follows Akemi Nakajima, a smart but troubled youth that develops a computer program that summons demons to get even with his bullies. His attempt is successful, but the program spirals out of control and Nakajima himself is attacked by the demons. Surviving with the aid of a transfer student, Yumiko Shirasagi, they hunt down the horde of demons before they can destroy the world. Megami Tensei, which translates to Goddess Reincarnation, refers to Yumiko's true identity as the reincarnation of the goddess Izanami. The game would go on to reap critical success and praise. Key gameplay elements such as dungeon crawling, observing moon phases, demon fusions, and demon negotiations would heavily influence the gameplay of its sequels and spin-offs. In 1992, the Megaten franchise released a new game with a more original story that didn't take from the novels, titled Shin Megami Tensei. Atlus has gone on record and said that the series title translates to True Goddess Metempsychosis. Metempsych, I ain't doing this right now. The game's original story, alongside its polished mechanics, set it up for great critical success in Japan, putting it up with the big boys, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. The closely followed sequel continuing the events of the first game was also praised highly. Success continued with the release of Shin Megami Tensei 3, Nocturne. Its story is independent from the games before it, but it was still highly praised for its heavy plot and engaging mechanics. The newly introduced Press Turn feature was a well-received combat mechanic for the series. This feature granted players extra turns when they exploited an enemy's weakness. This encouraged players to either recruit or fuse demons to have a variety of abilities to gain the upper hand in battle. The enemy also had a press turn mechanic, where if they exploited the player team's weakness, they would gain an extra turn. This called for focus on team composition and careful planning, making combat engaging and unique for its time. Sound familiar? This feature is used in the Persona games under the guise One More, with a few tweaks here and there. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne's updated version in Japan, Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne Maniacs, featured additional content, including the ever meme-worthy
どうやら寿司だの芸者だのって雰囲気じゃなさそうだな。
featuring Dante from Devil May Cry series.
What the hell is this?
This would be the version that international audience would get, titled Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne for the US or Shin Megami Tensei Lucifer's Call in the EU. Though it didn't do well financially, selling just over 250,000 units and not meeting its target sales, Nocturne amassed a cult following and became a gold standard for SMT games. With this, Shin Megami Tensei would be the new name of the Mega 10 franchise. Atlus slapped the Shin Megami Tensei prefix on most of Mega 10's spin-offs, including Devil Survival, Digital Devil Saga, Devil Summoner, Soul Hackers, and even the Persona series. The Shin Megami Tensei prefix was used by Atlus West to ride off the success of Nocturne and help market Persona. The Persona series eventually outsold the core SMT games by a landslide, and even dropped the use of the prefix entirely with the release of Persona 4 Golden, which is available on PS Vita and Steam. Sorry, I just rest in peace my baby Vita. Despite this, the Persona series continues to borrow a lot of elements from its parent series, such as the name of the skills, the demons used, and other gameplay elements. Where the two differ is mainly on the narrative focus and themes. While Persona games tend to primarily take part in a more realistic setting, the primary environments of Shin Megami Tensei games are often hyper-fantasized settings with cyberpunk and occult themes. Persona, as most of us are familiar with, revolves around managing a social life, scoring good grades, taking part in club activities, hitting on teachers, in tandem with facing otherworldly threats. It's more realistically grounded, all things aside, and it's more relatable to how one manages time in their everyday life. Shin Megami Tensei games, however, take part in worlds that have been greatly affected by fictional events. The main drive of these games are to explore the meticulously crafted fictional worlds as the player progresses the usually depressing plots of the game. Players are often given choices that set their alignment to either law, chaos, or neutral. These alignments heavily affect the ending of the game. In Persona, there are usually 1 or 2 social links you need to complete to unlock a good ending. There is also the obvious yes or no question that pops up in the late game that decides whether you would let the world end or continue fighting. It doesn't bear much consequence, as the game is tailored to encourage the player to make the obvious choice. If you head down the wrong path, you just know that this wasn't the way the game was supposed to end. The choices you make in SMT, however, are not as punishing. The questions the player is presented with are much more aimed towards you, the player, rather than the character you play as. As a result, whether you end up aiding Lucifer's army or standing with God's forces, which is usually how these games end, neither truly feels like a bad ending. There are endings that are canon, but ultimately, players will feel the psychological toll of whatever ending they get regardless. It just doesn't feel wrong. And I guess that's all for this video. Do give this video a like, please, because my brain hurts. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.